Welcome to Amplify, a podcast series by the Association for Accounting Marketing. I'm Katie Tolin with CPA Growth Guides, and I'm your host for today's session. Joining me is Danny Estrada. Danny is the founder of E Squared, a management consulting company that helps CPA firms dissect both the people and the processes that occur around technology to assure that it's both efficient as well as creates long-term value for the firm. So welcome, Danny.
Hi, Katie. Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
And we're happy to have you. And today you're going to be talking to us about CRM, something that you know very well, but most specifically how business developers, how salespeople should be using CRM. I think a lot of people view CRM as a reporting tool, but really when it's used properly, this is an invaluable sales tool. So that's kind of where I want to start today. So let's talk about this as a sales tool. I think the perception is my boss wants me to put all this information in the system so they can make sure I'm doing something. And that's not really the case. As a business developer, why should I be excited and invested in using CRM?
Well, as a business developer, one of the major things that we all do is we have families, we have lives outside of our jobs, we sleep. It's impossible for us to remember everything that we need to know or strategic elements of a particular transaction or how we're going to strategize and win a piece of business or who else in the firm we might need to bring in order to be successful. And so that's really the essence of why almost any business developer should really use a CRM. Much of the to-do, as you already mentioned, is around garbage in, garbage out, reporting tool, this, that, and the other. I'm like, no, I used to carry a bag, and I had to use a CRM on the front lines. And it was really more about me putting things in there or setting dates that were important or bringing other people into the process that enabled me to have the right information at the right time and know who else needed to be involved in order for me to win. Because at the end of the day, that's the only scorecard. If I win, I stay employed. If I don't, I have to move on.
I think the one thing that's intimidating about CRM is the amount of data. I've used a couple different CRM programs, and when you use the out of the box, they want you to give every bit of information that you've ever known. So my question is, does all of that data really matter? Do I need to put it all in? Should I be looking at it all? What pieces of data in the CRM is most important to me as a business developer so I make sure I'm not putting garbage in?
Well, there's an exchange of various different things, right? And that goes to the overall historical tussle on the corporate side between sales and marketing. Marketing says, I can't bring you the right targets if I don't know more specifically what you're looking for. And sales on the other side, or in this case, business development, says, you're giving me way too many things to go through because you're not bringing me the right targets. So there is some level of data that is necessary because you're not the only one using this data, right? But we like to use one of the little tools I like to use is what we call the $100 test, right? So if you had all these data points that you wanted to capture, and let's say there are 25 data points, and you only have $100 to spend, you can put $100 towards one data element, or you can put $4 towards each of the 25, or you can spread it out however you want. But essentially, what's most important to you? And you go to the different stakeholders, whether it's marketing, whether it's the managing partner, whether it's the business developers or their managers, and you find out what data points are actually most essential. Because there's a lot of data collection, because in most systems today, you can add fields literally all day long and not stop. There's no penalty. But there is a penalty to the business developer and the speed at which business gets done. So there is a cost to every data point that you collect. So nowadays, it's really more about finding out, okay, what are the most essential things that I will need to have, or the people that are helping me bring in more business need to have, because sometimes it could be, let's say one data point is, when is this piece of business expected to land? Well, if I have an audit practice or a tax practice behind me, and they're trying to plan for staffing, and HR is trying to figure out how much staff we need and all that. Knowing how much business and the volume of it and what type of business is coming in, having that one data point, while it doesn't seem as big a deal to the business developer, has so many other implications across the firm. And the other side of it is, if they don't write that down, then guess what? They just cost themselves 3 phone calls, 5 emails, and other people coming to ask for it anyway, because they're going to be looking for it. Does that make sense?
Yes. So walk me through an example. So let's say my marketing team just sends me an email from a prospect. So, I think the basics is, go enter the guy or the woman's information in CRM. But what else should a business developer be doing with that lead within CRM, whether it's research, whether it's entry, whatever it is, as part of that sales process?
Well, I think we talk about this in good, better, best types of scenarios, because the reality is not everybody works for the same size firm with the same amount of resources. One of the things that we like to talk about is the golden rule of data. So once something's been entered once, it shouldn't have to be entered again. So if that came in through some marketing resource digitally, it should have already shown up in CRM. Somebody shouldn't have had to enter it, right? And if not, you may want to take a look at your systems. The second piece is, if I have to enter the information, you enter the amount of information that is necessary in order for you to move down the path. What I mean by that is, marketing may have collected 7 or 8 data points. All you may need to know is the person's phone number, email address, first and last name, and how to get a hold of them so that you can start running down your process. Because the information you collect may not be any of those other 5 data points. If they're that important to marketing, they should enter them, right? So there should be, I'm going to enter what's important for me to move down the path, right? And that's generally contact information, because that's the transition when something goes from what we call a marketing qualified lead to a sales qualified lead. And that is when it goes from being one-to-many to personal, me interacting with individuals, right? And so I'm just going to enter the basic amount of information I need in order to move down the path.
I love that golden rule of data. And I think it's probably something that more firms should pay attention to, because you hear all these stories of their different technologies working in silos. So that was a great tip.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, we had one firm I just worked with recently where, as a result of centralizing all the collaboration and communication, we actually were able to see that we removed 30% of the email traffic on their own email server.
Oh, geez. Wow.
30%, yeah.
Okay, so the key is you've got to get the good data in, but the other component of CRM is getting the data out. And there's lots of reports, already in a standard CRM, things like pipeline, activity reports, even forecasting future revenue. As a business developer, what data is in there that I should be figuring out how I get out to actually help me in my efforts?
Okay, so the first thing is, any data that's in a CRM platform, any of the CRM platforms that are worth their salt today, nobody really uses reporting anymore.
Okay.
Because it's all dynamic information and it's real time and it's saved as of the last click. So the moment you run a report, any report, it's old. It's irrelevant, right? Because it's now no longer current. So having the right views of information, if you want to call it that different people will want to use for things that they need to manage, that's a business developer should not need to generate any type of report, whether it's activity reports, pipeline reports, any of that. All of that should be dynamic information served up to whoever needs it, whether it's a marketing lead report or whether it's a pipeline report. All those things should be dynamically delivered to those constituent groups in the way they need to see them, without talking to the business developer at all, unless they want to discuss the details of a deal, for instance. So your question was, what should I as a business developer really care about? The concept of where CRM started to add a lot of value in the marketplace was list, and what do I need to do next, right? I mean, that's really what it comes down to. Where CRM became really valuable was lots of people had Rolodexes, a lot of people had contact records and things like that, and email programs like Outlook. But what people they didn't have what I need to do next tied to a particular cycle of business. The thing about CRM technologies is they let you run as many sales cycles at the same time against one organization as you want. So while one person may be running a real long cycle for some type of business valuation that's being proposed, somebody else may be trying to grab the tax business, and somebody else may be trying to sell technology services. Well, one of those cycles may run 30 days, one may run 90, and one may run 180. But what's important about a CRM, and really how I need to use CRM effectively, is I need to write down why I'm going to win. And if I don't know that, that's also key information, right? I need to write down what I need to do next, or who I need to go to next. Where's my bottleneck in this deal moving down the path? Or I need to write down what information I'm still missing in order to price or propose. You're always looking at that. What is the next thing that I need to do? And as long as you log it and you say when you need to have it by, good CRM systems they'll serve all these lists up to you. So I'll log in today and, oh yeah, 2 weeks ago I talked about a quote for something that I need to get to somebody by the 15th. Well, it's almost the 15th, but now it's on my things I need to do this week list, right? And it's related to a particular proposal or bid or opportunity. Everybody uses different nomenclature in the business. But then there's something from 3 months ago that is not necessarily at the proposal stage, but it was, hey, my client's real busy in the summer. Now the summer's winding down, and now they want to get back to talking about one of those things that I was proposing. They just didn't have time. And it also shows up in my list for today or my list for this week. So really, what I need to put in CRM are the things that there's no way in the world I'm going to remember. And you also mentioned something about data entry, and I want to go back to this because, you know, if you took any particular business developer or any particular even shareholder partner in a firm that does business development, they have volumes and volumes of these books that they carry around that they take client notes in. Now, if you have them open up one of those books from, say, 2 years ago and just read 4 or 5 pages, they start to get a little bit flustered because there's already opportunities sitting right there in those books they never dealt with. See, if you're converting speech to text technology with a lot of the modern CRM tools where you can leave a meeting and you can actually just talk your notes into the system, but now they're searchable. Now you can attach dates or future activities to them. Now opportunity does not get lost. And that's one of the key things that almost every person who's doing business development is, what should I be working on? What has the highest likelihood of giving me the biggest win? And where should I be spending my time right now? Well, if you're using CRM correctly, that's all taken care of. It's about working smart. It's not just about working hard. And so visibility and credit and all these other things, those are systemic and cultural things that people have to basically understand how any particular firm operates. The reason that a hired full-time business developer would want to put those things in is people are going to ask anyway, right? You're hired to produce numbers. And if people have a better understanding by being able to read and decipher and look at information themselves, every minute that you're spending not talking to a higher up or a partner is another minute you can spend actually doing your craft. So that's why, number one, that you would want to put that information in and have it available to other people. But the other side of it is that there are in so many firms, you know, there's kind of a finite community of places where you're trying to do business. Not everybody's trying to beat down the doors of all these businesses that you've never talked to or done business with. And one of the places where I actually did a project a couple of years ago, the first thing that we did was, after we put in CRM, we went around and we collected over 2,000 business cards that were stacked sitting on people's desks. And then we started getting all those contacts into the system. And so what was funny was when there was one particular target firm that actually 6 or 7 partners in the firm were actually trying to do business in, in different ways, and they weren't collaborating at all with each other. And the business development side was very frustrated because they're saying, look, every single time we're going in to meet with these people, we're giving them that story that it's a one firm approach, yet there's 7 different people here that aren't collaborating. So fast forward, they actually did come together. They came together with the strategy. They figured out where the best relationships were, and then it turned into a 7-figure account for them. 7-figure. They did 6 different service lines across that account, and it actually it moved the needle. It moved the bottom line. But if all that information on all those contacts and who was meeting with who and what they were meeting about wasn't in the system, other people wouldn't have been able to see and identify and say, oh, hey, I see there's 4 new contacts on this particular client or prospective client. Oh, I see 2 other partners are actually having meetings there. Maybe I should talk to some other people.
Yeah, that really gets to the heart of team selling and its effectiveness and how this helps facilitate that team selling within a firm. So I got clearly that, I need to put that info in there, but it's a pain. Come on, Danny, you know what this is like. I've got 100 other things to do, clients calling me, emails to respond to. How do I make this part of my process that I do on a regular basis?
Well, a lot of it has to do with calendaring and prioritization, right? So you mentioned something about cold calling earlier and the fact that a lot of people don't do it. Those people that do it most effectively, they literally will take a list. They'll literally turn their cell phone. They won't put it on vibrate. They'll turn it off. They'll literally take that list. They'll take their email client and they'll shut it down. And for that time that they have allocated, they're actually going to cold call for 2 hours. And then they're going to put in the results and then move those things down the path, later on. But that story kind of goes to how I use a CRM system and how I make it quick and easy and effective, right? So the information that you need to put in generally isn't a lot at any given time. If you wait, then it looks like a mountain that you need to put in. So having access on your mobile device, on your tablet, wherever you happen to be, especially when you just get done with a meeting, a lot of people are now, instead of those notebooks, they're actually taking their laptops or surfaces into meetings and they're writing the notes right into CRM while they're meeting with the client. And the others, like I said, are doing speech to text right when they walk out of a meeting and setting future actions and things like that up. So if you deal with it piecemeal at a time and you leverage what technology can do now, the getting the data in is really, really fast, right? And it doesn't take a long time. And the reality is, in any given business development opportunity for any type of professional service, a deal or an opportunity or a pursuit, whatever you want to call it, is generally only updated 3 or 4 times in the entire cycle. There's discovery, writing the notes of what I think we're going to propose. There's okay, here's what we are actually going to propose in the strategy. Then here's the quote and what we actually proposed. And then here's a negotiation or a change in the new revision of the proposal. And then did we win or lose? It's more daunting than it seems. And then you already brought up the last point, which is when marketing or others are just making way too many data points that are unnecessary for you to land a piece of business, right? Because there is some bloat there.
So I want to go back to your example of, once you knew what everyone in the firm was doing on a prospect and, how much coordinated your effort can be. And so how can a firm, get the other people, the partners that are out there with these leads to put their information in? I'm assuming this probably gets back to the cultural issues that you hit upon earlier, but are there any best practices or anything like that to really get this to be a team effort firm-wide?
So I talked about this on an AIM event the other day, and that is the fact that one of the things that's kind of exploding now is this concept around business development playbooks, which have to do with common terminology, best practice, and process, as well as what we call rules of engagement, which is a set of expectations of each other. Because one of the biggest challenges that you have in the accounting side of things that you don't have on the corporate side is, on the corporate side, you generally have a structure where you have somebody in charge of quote unquote sales, your VP of sales, right? And they have directors or managers that work for them. And whatever the guidance is from the very top, that's the law of the land. That's what you do. In an accounting firm, once people become a shareholder, become an owner, and a lot of them learned how to build their book of business ad hoc, no specific way, no one can force them or make them do anything in particular. And so that's where you get this big challenge. And a lot of times in the partner meetings and other things like that, people start treating people, it's more like family than it is business. People won't say things that need to be said. People don't adhere to processes that made them successful to become a partner. There's a lot of, they have 5 different hats to wear that's going on. So when you write something down, it does become strategic. I always say if it's not written, it's not strategic. But if you have a set of expectations, and I'll give you an example. One of my clients, actually multiple clients, have this rule in their BD playbook. If you come across contact information and you're not going to enter it, hand it to someone who will. There's all kinds of card scanning technology. Most people have administrative assistants or their sales support on the BD side. So nobody's too busy to hand a card or forward an email to somebody else that has the time to put the information in. And once that becomes the standard or the expectation, then you wouldn't walk around and see stacks of business cards in different people's offices. Because culturally now, that's not acceptable, right? So it's a matter of changing how people think about things and then holding each other accountable.
So as we wrap up, I have a question to ask that is admittedly not an easy answer for you, I'm sure. But let's say I'm a business developer. I've just listened to this. We don't use CRM. You've kind of convinced me that I need to investigate this and be using it for myself, if not getting the entire firm to use it. So what should my next steps be? How do I go about having conversations or just getting some sort of acceptance to even explore CRM?
Okay, so there are a number of different ways. First of all, number one, you can reach out like on the AIM forums and things like that, because there are some actual free CRM resources that don't cost any money for licensing, depending on if you only have a few people. So there are some tools like that somebody can grab without needing funding from the firm, right? So number two, the second thing is until people have the ear of managing partner, somebody who runs a practice, executive committee, people that matter, that can actually sign checks and kind of explain the value of some of these things, or bring an expert, somebody like myself in who can explain the value, things generally don't go very far, right? And so that's a very common conversation that we have is, people are comfortable in the way that they did business development or they learned it. They may not be necessarily comfortable in how firms are going to be competitive moving forward, right? In fact, some of these firms that now have business developers have now started hiring them, and they didn't have them 5 or 10 years ago. So it's impossible for the partners to relate to why something like this is important. But once you start going down the path, because again, if you don't change thinking, you'll never change behavior. And if you're going to need funding and buy-in, especially because you have to work with these partners and collaborate with them on bringing these deals in, there's going to need to be participation there, and you can't get participation until at least they buy into the ideas. So that's really where to get started internally within a firm. And then if you don't know how to do that, then reach out to their experts that do a lot of time, spend a lot of time with leadership at accounting firms, big, medium, small, that can help you through the process of how do I get a managing partner or somebody that matters in a room to talk about this.
Well, thank you so much for your time. I think you've shared a lot of valuable information. I love the fact that there is even technology. You can build upon this technology to make it easier to use. And, I think the $100 test and the golden rule of data is something that we should all be paying attention to. So thank you so much for your time.
Awesome, Katie. Thank you very much.
This wraps up another episode of Amplify, a podcast series by the Association for Accounting Marketing. Please watch for another episode again next month, and always remember to aim high. Thanks.
Power up, listen.